Hi everyone, my name is Catherine and welcome back to my channel. On this channel you'll find videos all about blindness and visual impairments and how to enjoy different hobbies and really how I think about life through that lens. I create a lot of these videos partly to share the fact that just because I have a visual impairment doesn't mean I don't enjoy some more visual based hobbies, and partly to share how I think about the world and how I perceive the world in hopes that other people with similar eyesight to mine can see me doing things and get ideas or inspiration in a way that I've really not been able to find. So that's how I got started, and that's how I'm continuing. I'm just hoping to share my world with all of you in hopes that it helps someone. On today's video, I wanted to talk about my eyesight specifically, and not as much my eyesight and like the nitty-gritty details of that, but the fact that I'm not blind and yet I am blind, and I have spent a good portion of my life really feeling like I don't belong to either group, and how exactly that kind of feels for me. Apparently there's a dog walking by. So first of all, how my eyesight works is a little different. I have a 5-degree field of vision. I've mentioned this many times, but 5 degrees. So if you were to go into your kitchen and find one of those little funnels that you can get to use, you know, to like, I don't know, pour oil into a skinny bottle, or, you know, transfer spices or whatever you might use it for. That's what I use it for. But if you get one of those funnels and just close one eye, pretend it's not there. I do see out of both eyes, but for simplicity's sake, just close one eye and look through that funnel. And you're gonna see this really teeny tiny hole. And that hole is approximately the amount of eyesight that I have. So if you imagine that, and then say, okay, what can I see through that little teeny tiny hole? You're probably still going to be able to see fairly clearly, right? You know, my visual acuity, what I can see detail-wise, is very good. I have, with my glasses on, 20/70 eyesight, which is what a person with 20/20 vision could see standing 70 feet away from that object. I need to be 20 feet away from that object to see it. So it's not fantastic, but it's far from terrible. It's very usable. You know, because of this, I can read normal sized print. I can read very small print. If I'm far enough away from it, I can read very large print. I prefer not to read very large print when I'm close to it, but you know, if I'm needing to read a sign that's farther away, if it's large enough, I can read it easily. So that's where my eyesight is in terms of like normal lighting situations. Where it gets a little trickier is I also have night blindness. My eyes do not work at night. Well, they work at night as long as there's light around. They don't work in the dark. So if I go outside at night, I can't just use the ambient light from street lights and the stars and the moon to help me see something. I don't see anything. There is a dog walking by. I apologize. I'm not going to be able to edit that dog out. So when I do that, when I go outside and I see nothing, it really is nothing. I can see streetlights, like I can see that they are giving off light, and so I can use streetlights to help orient myself in the dark. You know, the patterns of the streetlights, how many streetlights there are, that can help me, but I really can't see anything in the dark. You know, when I turn the lights out at home, there might be a nightlight or something on. That doesn't help me to actually see anything. It might be a little bit of a beacon. You know, maybe if I'm staying at a friend's house, the nightlight might say, oh, go towards the light because that's where the bathroom is. But it doesn't help me see anything on my way to the bathroom, if that makes any sense. And finally, I don't have any depth perception. I don't. And I talked about this in a previous video, which I will link in the cards. Hopefully I'm pointing in the correct direction. It'll be up here somewhere. I'll link that video. I did talk about how I interpret depth rather than actually see it, because I just have to. I have enough eyesight basically to be dangerous, but not enough to really be considered fully sighted. So working in that realm has been a balancing act my entire life, because I've never really felt like I belonged in the sighted world. My eyes don't work well enough for me to really be considered sighted, but they also don't work badly enough for me to really be considered blind. I am legally blind, which means according to the law, I don't have enough eyesight to be considered sighted, so I am considered legally blind. But that's about it. And so it's taken me a very long time to understand my own eyesight and to really embrace the side of me that is blind, because the entire world talks about itself in sighted terms, and because I have just enough eyesight to be able to see a lot of the things that people talk about, it's the world I've tried my entire life to fit into. I did not use a white cane until I was in 7th grade. I needed one before then, but I had enough eyesight that I could kind of fool people, and I didn't fool my orientation and mobility teacher at all. But you know, I could kind of fake it through the rest of the world. And so she finally convinced my family to let her start teaching me how to use a white cane around 7th grade. And while that was very, very embarrassing, I am very thankful for that, because as I got older, I actually started to realize that I needed it more. And it actually led to me being able to be confident and travel independently, and eventually even be able to work with my guide dog. So it was fantastic. But at the time, it was really embarrassing because I already knew I was awkward, and I already knew that I was a little bit strange. And then there was just this big honkin' white stick that said, yeah, you really are different. You really are weird. And it was awkward. It took some getting used to. And I actually didn't use it during the school day throughout middle school or throughout high school. It really wasn't until I left for college that I realized just how much I needed it and really began to embrace it, and it actually became a part, like an extension of myself. But that took a while because, again, I have just enough eyesight that up until 7th grade, when I got the cane, I'd been learning how to use my eyes, and I'd been learning how to think about the world in terms of, yes, you can't see quite as well, but at the same time, this is how you use your eyes. This is how you use your eyesight. And so not really thinking of it in terms of, oh, I can't see this, therefore I need to touch it, because that's what the cane does. You know, it touches everything around you. It touches the floor, the ground around you, and it touches everything. And so not having that mindset of, I can't see to the degree that I need to learn how to feel things more, really made needing to learn how to use a cane a lot more difficult. Not physically. I mean, physically, honestly, I think a cane is very simple to use. It's a pretty easy concept, but it made it a lot more difficult, I think, emotionally than I would have thought, and then I'm sure anyone would have really guessed at the time. And that, as I said, that changed later. But okay, so now I have a white cane, and let's say I'm in college now, so I'm using my white cane, and people see it, and people know that, you know, I have this eye condition and I don't see very well, and I can't see at night, and all of this stuff. Okay, so my friends know this, my teachers know this, everyone knows this now. I know this, but I'm still that weird person who walks along with her white cane and then stops and reads a sign, or who walks along with her white cane, goes into the library and starts browsing the normal sized print books. I'm the person who goes into the cafeteria and reads the menu and reads the signs. Well, what the heck? Are you blind or not? And the answer to that question is yes. Yes to both. But there again, it's because I have this little bit of eyesight that actually is very useful. It's really easy to get confused. You know, I'm the person who, yes, I use my cane, but if my arms are full and I'm familiar enough with where I am, I might pick the cane up and stick it under my arm so that I can have both hands to carry this awkward package, or, you know, open a door or something because my hands are full. I'm the person who does that. Because when I'm familiar with an area, I wouldn't do that in some place that I really had no clue what might be around me. But, you know, if I'm walking along on my college campus and I've been there for 3 years, I'm pretty familiar with it. And so I know, okay, my hands are really full. I have to get down these steps. I can't use my cane right this second. I can pick it up and kind of tuck it in with everything else and carry whatever I'm carrying down the steps. And yes, I'm going to go a little bit more slowly. I'm going to feel a little bit more with my feet, but I don't necessarily need to be attached to it 24/7. And that's very confusing for people. And in fact, a friend of mine from my capoeira class had actually told me once, he said he was very confused before he knew me. He would see me walking around campus with the cane, and then all of a sudden he'd see me pick it up and continue walking, or pick it up because I needed to, you know, grab something and my other hand was full or whatever. And he was so confused. He's like, I didn't know what you were doing. Were you pretending? What was going on? Were you just taking a class? What was up? And so it's very confusing if you don't know me. It was very confusing for me for the longest time. I don't think people really understand, living in that sort of in-between space where you have the majority of the world who is sighted and talks about the world in sighted terms and expects if you can see anything that you act as a sighted person because they're sighted and they don't understand what it is not to be. But then also living partly in that world of blindness and not being able to see things, and, you know, not understanding body language and not understanding that the world isn't flat. And I don't mean flat like, you know, oh, the earth is flat. I mean flat like dimensionally, like that everything's not just on the same plane, and not being able to see anything at night and needing a lot more help at night than during the day. And all of these elements that come into just not getting it. And so I'm feeling that can really lead to a feeling of just really feeling broken and really feeling like there is just something wrong with you. Well, yeah, guess what? There is something wrong with me. You know, it is. There is something wrong. But it's really difficult when you aren't 100% in the yes, I'm blind category, because then the people who are sighted see that you're struggling but don't really know why, because you can see. And it's confusing. It's very confusing. And it's very weird. And it's taken me a very long time to really embrace the part of me that is blind. And I really, for the most part now, do identify, like I self-identify as blind, because I'm really not that sighted. But it's taken me a long time. I have had 34 years to grapple with this. It's taken me a long time to figure this out and to really start to understand. And I still don't understand everything. So what I'm sharing with you now is where I am on my journey right now, not where I'll be, you know, in 10, 20 years, however long, because it's confusing. I'm telling you, it is so confusing. And one of the things that really helped me to embrace that part of me that is blind, you would think it would be learning to use a cane. Surprise, no, it wasn't. The cane helped me. I feel like the cane in some ways helped me to still pretend I was more sighted than I am. Yeah. That's another discussion probably for another time, but it did. I think the cane, for the most part, it gave me more independence, which was fantastic, but it also helped me to sort of pretend that I'm fine. Everything's fine. You know, it did. The first thing that helped me really embrace the side of me that is blind is when I started training capoeira and starting to interact with people in that very physical way, made using my eyesight very difficult. It suddenly became impossible for me to pretend that everything was fine and I could see just fine, because the way my eyesight works, because I have such a small field of vision, when I'm close to someone or something, I see very little of it at one time. So the farther away I am, the more of someone, the more of something I can see at once. But in order to see like the movements that we actually need to react to in capoeira, I would have had to be like in the balcony of an auditorium looking down at the stage. You can't play capoeira when you're that far away from someone. You can't interact when you're that far away. So it suddenly became very important that I understand that my eyes don't work as well as I like to think they do, that they're not as useful as I would like to think they are, and to actually work around the problem rather than ignore it. And so that's the first thing that really jarred me out of this. Oh, everything's fine. No, everything's not fine. And I need to work with that, and I need to accept that. And so the first way we did that was capoeira. When I first started, we were trying to figure out how I was supposed to learn the movements. You know, suddenly my teacher couldn't just show a movement and have a student understand it because I couldn't see what he was doing. Suddenly, as we're trying to figure out how to have me understand how to interact and play with other people, you know, like actually play the games with other people, I couldn't just look at one particular point. You know, usually the tip for capoeira is watch their shoulders or watch their hips. You know, watch your partner's shoulders or hips, because that's the part that's going to move first and going to tell you which way your partner is moving or what they're doing. I can't do that. Especially at the distance that we are from each other in a normal game. I maybe can look at one shoulder or the other. I cannot look at both. If I look down at the hips, I can't see the shoulders or the head. It's so close. My eyesight is really pretty useless in capoeira. So we needed to figure out how to get around that. And eventually we did. And part of figuring that out was saying, what if you just closed your eyes and didn't use your eyesight at all? Because it's not useful, it's actually getting in the way. And so that was the first time that I really had realized, like, oh, I can do that. And this is one of those areas where, again, I straddle both worlds, because on the one hand, I have useful eyesight, and so I can just use it when I need to. I can use it to read signs, I can use it to look at traffic lights and different things like that. But when it becomes a hindrance, I can close my eyes and just take it away entirely. And now, all of a sudden, I'm not distracted by it. And so while my skills are the same as they are with my eyes open, I'm taking away that distraction of the eyes. And I can then tune in more to my other senses. Because something that sighted people tend to like to say is, oh, you know, when you lose one sense, the other one gets so much stronger. It's not that it gets stronger. I don't have super hearing. I don't have super touch. No blind person that I know does. We just pay attention to those senses more than someone who has eyesight does. And so when I'm starting to get really distracted by my eyesight, if I just close my eyes and take it away completely, now all of a sudden I have a whole new way of looking at the world and interacting with the world, and it's great. So the other way that I really started to embrace the blind part of myself is when I started working with my guide dog. And it's a whole application process. I will have a video coming out hopefully sometime this summer about guide dogs and things that I wish people knew about them and about their handlers and all of that good stuff. But getting a guide dog is not as simple as saying, oh, I need a guide dog. You do have to be legally blind. Like, you do have to actually meet the legal requirements of being blind, which I do. And you do actually have to have very good orientation and mobility skills, which I do. So I met the requirements, I applied, and was accepted by Guiding Eyes for the Blind, and I started working with my guide dog. Oh my gosh, almost 7 years ago. It'll be 7 years ago in August. And I really, again, started to realize just how much pressure I'd been putting on myself to see what I actually can't see. Because once I had my dog and I realized that he was taking care of all the little things that I normally have to take care of, that I normally on my own have to think about. He was taking care of that. He was moving me around furniture that would be on the sidewalks, you know, from like restaurants and different things. He was moving me around trees and plants and things I might otherwise trip on. He was working and weaving through a crowd of people, which I've mentioned before is probably the most difficult in terms of obstacles. You know, people are difficult because people are constantly moving. They're never in the same place twice. And he was moving me through this crowd with such ease and fluidity and grace, and it was amazing. I never realized how stressful it was to be this sort of half blind that I am, until I started working with my dog and realized that suddenly he took away a lot of the problems that I was having. And that really started to help me realize too that, oh, okay, so I really can't see as much as I thought I could, because this dog can see a lot more than I can, and he's actually moving me through a crowd and moving me around obstacles way easier than I ever could do on my own. And so those two things, I think, were the two biggest things for me. And they didn't come for me until I was in my 20s. I didn't start capoeira until I was in my 20s. I think like mid 20s. I didn't get my guide dog until my mid 20s. So the answer to the question that I asked at the beginning of this video, am I blind or not? The answer remains yes. And I know that's not a yes or no question. I'm both. And thanks to a lot of work and experiences and just realizing that I do things differently, that I think about the world differently, thanks to many conversations with friends and family, and taking on the new adventure of learning a martial art and really diving into that, thanks to being convinced by my brother and other blind friends to apply for a guide dog, and actually having the opportunity to work with a guide dog and really just thinking about the way I interact with the world, I have finally started to realize that I am more blind than sighted. And I have finally really started to embrace that side of myself, but it's taken a very long time. And there are still things that I try to participate in. There are still events that I go to. There are still things that I do where I question myself and where I really just don't know how to break out of that awkward, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me. What is wrong with me mentality? And it will probably be something that I will struggle with forever, because I see just enough. I see just enough to be confused myself. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below about something that you found surprising, or tell me a little bit about your experience. You know, do you have something that maybe you struggle to figure out in your own life or within yourself, you know, whether it's visual or maybe you have trouble with your hearing, anything. I would love to know how you understand the world and how you understand yourself, and if that's been a difficult journey for you as well, because it certainly has been for me, and I'm sure it will continue to be. Otherwise, please subscribe if you haven't already, if you would like to see more videos like this. And if you would like to be notified whenever I post a new video, please hit that notification button, that little bell. And until next time, I hope you all have a fantastic week, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.